So, hello and welcome everybody to the second episode of Circular Innovation Council's Knowledge Series. Today, we're joined by a talented and diverse panel to discuss the implementation of circular economy concepts in food rescue and organic waste diversion. In particular, we are examining the circular economy opportunities in the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector, and we are very grateful for the support and sponsorship of Walker Industries. But before we hear from our subject matter experts, for those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, I just wanted to give you a brief overview about us. Originally established in 1978, Circular Innovation Council is an independent environmental corporation and a national non-profit organization with over 40 years of experience delivering programming that educates and empowers Canadians to take action on the circular economy and its environmental, economic, and social benefits. In concert with our members and partners, we leverage our experience and expertise to deliver on the broad gains inspired by the circular economy through research, policy, programs, and pilots. Our mandate is to accelerate Canada's transition toward a circular economy by putting concepts into action. This virtual knowledge series highlights a range of avenues propelling Canada towards a circular economy. Sessions reflect the diversity of outcomes, market-based solutions, and broad works of Circular Innovation Council. This webinar will conclude at 1 p.m. and we will do our best to answer any questions you may have at the end. Please use the Q&A function to raise your questions throughout the presentation. If we don't get to all the questions, we will answer them by email after the event. And now I'm going to introduce my colleague, Katie Motta, who will be presenting this knowledge series and our expert panel. Katie leads the overall pilot development and implementation of the circular food recovery and waste diversion pilots for Circular Innovation Council. Katie is an experienced sustainability and economic inclusion leader with more than 20 years of experience in both the private and non-profit sectors, designing and leading programs that delivered shared business, environmental, and social value. So, over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Shirley. I am delighted to have with us on this panel 3 of our valued partners. And our goal is to give you a well-rounded view of our IC&I pilot. I'm going to speak at a high level to the model and share a couple of our learnings. And then I'm going to hand it off to Soligo, Manager of Solid Waste Services at the County of Wellington, who's going to speak to you more about the municipal role as host of the IC&I pilot. In addition, Peter Uppal, VP of Sales and Business Development at Superfy, will give you an overview of our data-driven approach to organics diversion, leveraging their sensor technology. And last but certainly not least, Aquino, Municipal Relations Manager in the Strategic Business Development Unit at Walker, will showcase a few of the many investments they've made to produce high-quality compost and its role in a circular and regenerative food system. So let me dive in. Oh, I'm gonna not skip over that one. There we go. Our solution is what we would call a system solution, addressing IC&I food waste reduction complexity by bringing multiple stakeholder groups together to co-develop a holistic and collaborative solution. We could not have implemented this pilot without the supports of our many partners, and especially provided by our Food Futures, the Smart Cities initiative of the City of Guelph and the County of Wellington, something Dos will speak to you a little bit more about. Our largest sponsor has been Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada through their Food Waste Reduction Challenge, their business model stream in particular. And we are currently in the running for the $1.5 million grand prize to be awarded in the late fall of this year, which would allow us to expand this across the country. All of our private sector and academic partners have been extremely generous with their in-kind or sponsorship contributions. And just as importantly for us, their time to support our learnings as we've moved through the various stages of this pilot. And last, but certainly not least, I want to mention that the model creates a locally owned solution that is really relevant to the local context. We've partnered with the Seed as our operational partner to manage this model longer term. The Seed is an innovative social enterprise of the Guelph Community Health Center and is working towards a connected community where everyone has access to healthy food. We're benefiting from their local food rescue expertise while we train them on the IC&I organics collection recruitment, and we're co-developing the business model. So as many on this call may be aware, it's estimated that over 50% of all food in Canada is wasted every year, while 1 in 6 Canadians suffer food insecurity. What's less known is that the institutional, commercial, and industrial sector, also known as the IC&I sector, produces more food waste annually than households, between 5 and 9 million tons, depending on if we include manufacturing. But there's really very few solutions targeting a holistic approach, including cost reduction, for these largest producers of Canada's food waste. It's a problem that is more expensive and complex than many businesses and institutions have time or money to deal with. And that's where we aim to play a role. So we're trying to sort of overcome a number of challenges. According to Our Food Futures food material flow study, the IC&I sector in Guelph, Wellington generates 65% more food waste than the residential sector, which makes sense given their agri-food locale. Most of it goes to landfill due to the high cost of organic diversion, limited regulatory requirements, and other perceived barriers. And for those that are diverting organics, there's disaggregated, meaning facility by facility, IC&I organics collection, and that limits the ability to leverage standardized services or collection efficiencies. And that increases costs, especially for small and medium enterprises that are typically paying the highest premiums for food waste diversion. So what we're really trialing here is we're mimicking the efficiency and the consolidated regional collection model of residential programs. We're sending one truck door to door to as many neighboring businesses as possible and enabling the community of businesses to work together to reduce the cost of organics collection and diversion while simplifying edible food rescue. So this circular solution keeps resources at their highest value, and here's how it works. As a starting point, we engage and recruit all types and sizes of neighboring IC&I, from hospitals, hotels, and grocers, to manufacturers, restaurants, and shopping plazas, by working through the logistical concerns with them. Simple things like provision of compostable bags and bins that fit in the kitchen flow actually go a long way towards simplifying the process and overcoming small hurdles for these businesses to divert food waste. We also provide subsidized collection for a limited time, which helps overcome the cost barrier and allows these IC&I to trial food rescue and diversion of food waste with no risk. Staff at each IC&I become valuable allies to continue organics diversion, as they are generally vocally supportive of the program internally. So we start by actually training the IC&I establishments on the Second Harvest Food Rescue app. So businesses with surplus food have a simple way to donate donate any surplus food they may have to local food redistribution charities. We also create efficiencies by consolidating the IC&I organic waste collection amongst neighboring businesses in as tight a geographic route as possible, bringing those cost reductions. And the organics, which we've determined are very low in contamination from our pilot to date, are processed at competitive rates at a local composter, who you'll hear from shortly. Both components contribute to a circular food system. The solution delivers logistical and business model innovations that we'd like to highlight that help move the IC&I establishments beyond the status quo. So we've talked about the holistic nature of combining food rescue as well as food waste diversion in the training, so that that's front and center as businesses look at their food waste overall. And we talked about the consolidated organics collection to bring cost reductions. We also try and capture that cost reduction through collective procurement that ensures all sizes of business in the collective benefit from the negotiated cost reductions from the scale of this route. Our membership-based business model aims to equitably share the fixed costs of the collection route amongst members, both large and small, while providing a small revenue stream to our local operational partner. And as Superfy will speak about in just a minute, our real-time organic waste data-driven approach may enable a weight-based utility-type business model to incentivize food waste reduction at each site, as well as provide improved publicly available organic waste data across the IC&I subsectors. So just a few key learnings before I hand it off to my colleagues. The main approach, and from a business model innovation perspective, we're tackling is the consolidated route economics. So firstly, we were delighted to realize and learn that the standardized collection service model really is effective for the vast majority of IC&I. There are, of course, some exceptions. One of the other key pieces that our hauling partner Waste Management helped us figure out is sort of what our target efficiency or productivity rate is. And so for a city the size of Guelph, that's, and our route also combines a series of towns in Wellington County, that looks like 10 to 12 totes an hour. And we think that would be different depending on the geography. It would certainly be lower in a larger city, for example. And through this, we've determined that we can achieve 30 to 40% cost reduction below the average existing regional cost per tote by optimizing these efficient routes. And the way we capture that cost reduction, as I mentioned, is both through the collective procurement, as well as, the consolidated collection. And because we are in southwestern Ontario, there are a plethora of processing options. We can also get a competitive quote for processing, but we know that that's regional dependent. On the food rescue side of things, it's perhaps not too surprising that in our model, the grocery retailers do generate the largest amounts of surplus edible food for rescue. And through their participation, we have very much seen that the largest generators of surplus food can find savings in their organics diversion costs by donating that food rather than putting it in the green bin. But challenges remain, and we're still working to solve these with our partner, The Seed. Restaurants, hospitality, and catering businesses, for example, do need additional food rescue, hands-on support and guidance. And we haven't yet really overcome the challenge around the small volumes at some of these sites of surplus edible food donations that may not be sufficient to overcome the logistical cost of collections. So I've got a few testimonials that I invite you to look at when we send this deck around, but in the interest of time, I want to hand it off to Doss to tell us a little bit more about the County of Wellington's role in the pilot.
Thank you, Katie, and hello, everyone. My name is Doss Soligo, the manager of solid waste services at the County of Wellington. And as Katie said, I'm here to speak about this exciting and innovative pilot project that we've partnered with the Circular Innovation Council and the City of Guelph. So the pilot itself has been described in detail by Katie, so I will not belabor any of these points, and I'll move on to the next slide. So the county saw an opportunity to and a role for us to help promote and support this pilot. And we saw that through sharing information related to potential participants in our community, making introductions and or referrals, and also using our economic development and other communications platforms to help with supportive communications and program promotion. So we were able to help inform the decisions around this efficient routing that Katie mentioned, as well as establishing the collection boundaries of the program. We also helped with identifying potential service providers to partner with, as we do have, as Katie said, some processing options as well as collection service providers in our community. And we also helped to fund the pilot where there were gaps from external funding sources. Next slide, please. So we saw there was a lot of potential value to municipalities and to us in particular. For those municipalities with a landfill, you can certainly extend the life of the landfill site by reducing the amount of organics waste that's going into it. And not to go on a rant or dwell on the capacity scarcity situation in Ontario, but at the risk of being alarmist, I'd like to say that we're in a landfill capacity crisis in this province, and we really urgently need to develop more waste disposal capacity. And a part of that is by preserving the life of the landfills that we currently have in operation. And just to briefly put something in perspective, across the province, there's approximately 10 years of landfill life left in aggregate. And looks like it's taking at least about 10 years to site a new landfill site. And there hasn't been a new landfill site sited in Ontario in over 20 years. So just by looking at those numbers, perhaps you can understand why I call it a landfill capacity crisis. So some of the other value that we saw to this pilot program for us as a municipality, but certainly this is applicable to most, if not all municipalities, is to improve the waste diversion rates, as well as for those of us with waste diversion goals. It's an excellent way to help meet those. Also, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and meet the climate change mitigation goals of your organization. Again, many municipalities have these goals, and so this is a way of supporting organics diversion in your community in a way that's not normally captured through traditional green bin programs. So this pilot also helps to address food insecurity in your community or in a community, as well as attaining organic waste data from a variety of IC&I sectors. And if you can see those listed on the right-hand side, they're restaurants, shopping plazas, hotels and hospitals, multi-residential, organics processors, long-term care, and manufacturing. Next slide, please. So as an extension, so some additional ways that we were able to have a role and support this pilot was through identifying a model that works effectively for most sizes of IC&I entities. And I saw a question, what does IC&I mean? That's the institutional, commercial, and industrial sectors. So basically everything other than the residential sector, which municipalities are mandated to serve. So this also helps us get data around determining costing for IC&I organics collection and looking at a cost recovery model. Should this be some sort of a la carte option that you could provide for organizations in your community? And I'm going to kind of build on that in a moment here, especially as we look at the context of how this sort of business model can be extended and replicated in a full producer responsibility landscape, where we're looking at recycling services and the withdrawal of those services after we enter a full producer responsibility. For some folks, starting next week, and looking at over the next 2 years, 2.5 years. So also, there's a real benefit to looking at preparing your community for potential organics bans. For a number of years, 2 successive provincial governments have talked about organics bans in Ontario. And so this sort of model is a way of meeting those obligations should that ban come to fruition. And of course, as municipalities, we always want to be looked at as sustainable. We want to be circular economy champions, and this is an innovative way of achieving that. Next slide, please. So this infographic shows some very impressive results after 18 months of the pilot being in operation. And I trust I can read that clearly on my screen. I won't read all those to you, but I will share that the GHG emissions that have been avoided through this program is equivalent to 1,020 cars being pulled off the road for 1 year. And maybe we can just keep the slide for a moment for people to read the rest of the information. Advance it when you would like, please. So I spoke about the implications of this sort of business model and service model and how that could be applied to the post-EPR world. So for those that may not be aware, The blue box programs across Ontario are being transitioned to full producer responsibility starting next week for some communities. And there's 3 different cohorts again in 2024 and lastly, as in Wellington County's case, in 2025. And as our municipal blue box programs are transitioned, businesses that are currently able to enjoy the curbside collection of recycling will no longer have that option. The producers will not be providing or paying for recycling for the IC&I sector. So you can see how this type of model can be replicated in this sort of way. A municipality can look at working with chambers of commerce, with BIAs, and setting up this cooperative procurement model where trucks can go and service those downtown areas that are currently enjoying service and fill that gap. I know in Wellington County, a lot of the municipal councillors have a lot of anxiety about what this means for the business sector, about losing this important and valued service, as well as the potential for more recycling to end up in landfill sites. So it truly is something that is innovative approach. And you could also look at leveraging your existing curbside collection and have this be an option, your existing curbside collection contract, and have this sort of service be an option that could be added at any point within the contract. So as I said, it's filling the gap that the legislation has created and providing continuity of blue box collection services, as well as it's supporting a community-based solution where the BIAs, the chambers of commerce, are taking some interest in a vested stake in continuing to divert the recyclables from landfill sites. So that concludes my my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Hello, everyone.
No, I'm just going to jump in, but you've done it. Go for it, Peter. Thank you.
No problem. Hello, everyone, and happy today to be presenting two-tier our solution in general in terms of how we go to market, and then also how that particularly appeals to the food waste program here in connection to the city of Guelph and circular economy that we started about 6 months ago. So you can hop to the next slide. So just in general overview, TELUS and Superfy, we focus on really delivering sustainable smart waste management solutions through IoT and software, generally across Canada to cities, enterprises, and really focusing on providing data set solutions to help in terms of better operating your businesses and ultimately gathering that data. Next slide. So in the end, how does our program work? It's very simple. In the end of the day, first and foremost, we have IoT sensor devices that help connect the data, help receive the data. From there, we connect to the TELUS network as far as from a security standpoint, and simple cellular connection allows us to transmit the data to our Waste Insights portal. And from there, that's really where we start to have the ability to analyze the data, and from there create different module sets, which we really focus on, whether it's route optimization, sustainability scoring, operations, so various different modules as we kind of progress through our life cycle and really focus overall on asset management. As far as kind of what is our goal, ultimately it's to make cities, campuses, organizations smarter. So in a nutshell, these are kind of 4 major benefits of our program. First and foremost, it's really using the devices and the platform to help increase operational efficiency. So that's anything from labor and resources to really helping in terms of reducing your collections and meeting your CO2 target. So with using the data with fewer cars on the road, fewer trucks on the road, fewer collections, really helps to reduce that collection side of it and meet those CO2 reduction targets. And then from a citizen standpoint, which will show the technology coming up, it really helps in terms of reducing overflowing bins and contamination. And then ultimately within this space over the last couple of years, as far as sensor technology goes, it's really helped cities and organizations start their journey in starting to understand a very unique data set, having the ability at a low cost to help with urban planning, supporting in recycling measures, and really allowing that data set to enhance their business and operational efficiencies. Next slide. As far as the hardware goes, we'll take a look. So this is our flagship sensor, and the core of what it does is it uses laser technology to measure fill levels based on your container. So from there, you really have your journey in terms of starting your data flow, specifically with asset utilization. From there, as I mentioned, really having the ability to look at your bin fill levels and rates per hour. And then from kind of using the software side of things, really adapting and tagging certain types of bins and sizes, how that actually translates to bin distribution and control, and then really using that data from a historical standpoint to understand your vehicle loads, frequencies, and then overall better optimize your routes and your operational efficiencies. Next slide, please. All right, just a quick overview before we get into the actual pilot itself. So this is how the sensor works. Very simple. We connect the sensor to various different styles of bins. Now, whether it's front loads, city bins, in this example, 64-gallon, 32-gallon totes. From there, the sensor reports in hourly as far as data transmission goes. So that report goes back into our platform, and then from there it's analyzed in the cloud, and we actually have the ability to present the user with actionable insights. So really from a simple sensor, we start to connect and gather a lot of different data sets, which in particular, now when we look at the next slide here, we'll get more specific into the actual pilot with the CIC. So as Katie originally mentioned, about 6 months ago, we started our pilot specifically centered around really having the ability to measure weight based on these specific food waste totes. So current model is, generally speaking, you would need a scale to be dragged out to each individual business unit, and from there really manually pull the weight. So as technology increases here and we have newer versions of sensors, et cetera, coming out, we had the ability to really use our sensor in a unique way here, where we started to, at the baseline, measure the fill level of each individual tote. And then from there, what we did, working with Katie and team, we set a baseline weight per business on a month average. And then from there, we were actually able to use the platform from an equation standpoint, enter an equation that gave us estimated weight. So yes, it's not 100% accurate, but in reality, it really starts the journey of having the ability to look at a fairly accurate weight data without having to rely on city haulers to report in, and then also on the flip side, manually going in and pulling the data. So as we kind of progress here, we'll look at some of the data sets and information coming in. Katie, if you jump to the next slide. So this is an example of the current dashboard we have. As you can see, we have all the assets placed on the map. And at the baseline, what you see today is the data reporting in terms of what is the asset fullness level. So here we have an example of the current asset is sitting at 95%. And then from there, if you transition to the right here, we start to actually use that data based on the weight calculations and weight conversions to understand how much is that estimated weight over a period of time. So as we kind of progress over the coming months, we've really focused on looking at different ways, different measurement tools, and really refining the process to where we believe it's at a great point where it's giving us accurate data and have the ability to really estimate within a certain percentile. Next slide, please. This is just a graph showing the hourly weight data coming in. So here we can see examples of fluctuations, and this is just based on items being thrown in and the weight essentially settling out when it comes to food waste. So it does settle off over time. So it gives us a good example of when bins are emptied, how that data flow comes in, and then we can match that ultimately to help service the businesses better from a collection standpoint. And then also more importantly, for Katie and her team, it's really gathering that data over a course of a period of time to effectively understand how much weight is being produced and really use those figures going forward. Next slide. This is just another example of fill level percentage trend, just to give a different view of a different tote coming in as far as the hourly data goes. Next slide. And in the end, so this is a slide we're working towards. So this would be the ultimate goal. Obviously, we're starting our journey today to really understand how the sensors can effectively collect the data, how they can report it in. But working with the CIC, this is what we envision a dashboard looking like once we have the ability to scale this out to multiple different units, multiple different subsectors. So here you'd see, for example, we could pick a subsector within the restaurant dine-in environment. From there, we could start to understand total weight as far as tons go, emissions reduced, again, different flows as far as different sectors go, food waste calculators. So there's a lot behind this as far as where we want to take it. And as we kind of have different technologies come out to support the sensor side of it, we will have the ability to really enhance this, call it dashboard, that's specific to food waste. Obviously, what we showed originally, what the sensor is centered around more of, call it the waste collection side of it. But this is a great unique use case and pilot that gives us the ability to really focus the product in a very specific channel. And next slide. So that essentially wraps up the actual pilot itself. And then just based on a couple other use cases, I wanted to give a demonstration of how the fill levels sensors really work out in field. So we'll go through a couple of these and then we'll pass it on over. So next slide. So we had a great use case with the city of Windsor. So particular in the food waste side, that was your 64 32-gallon totes. Here's an example of having the ability to sensor a 8-foot long bin that's specific to parks and recs within the city of Windsor environment. So where this really was a unique use case is typically from an efficiency standpoint, city staff were visiting each of these bins and ultimately having to manually look at fill levels, whether peeking their head in or poking it with a stick to understand when to set a collection, because it does take a unique vehicle to service these bins. So from there, we were actually able to run a pilot based on 15 units, gathered the data, started to understand the flow of the data, and really help them solve the issue of having external staff visit these on a consistent basis, especially in the summer, and really just set schedules for pickups based on the sensor data coming in. So it was a great use case just to show a different style of bin, and now we'll be expanding to other bins within the city environment. Next slide. And just to give another example of a unique style of bin with the Edmonton Business Association, these are new street bins within the business sector. So basically very similar strategy here. They wanted to understand more of the data flow, the usage of these as they look to expand these across the city. They want to understand what are some of the busier areas. Do they need to change their bin distribution, less bins in a certain area, more in another? And then from there, really look at operational efficiencies as far as collection patterns go, to ensure that they're picking up the bins at the right time. They're not sending cars too often or too less. So great use case overall as far as a different style of bin, just to give everyone here an idea. And I think from there, Katie, we can just skip the next couple based on time and jump to the next speaker.
That's great. Thanks, Peter. Deanna, I'll move forward to your slides. Give me 1 second here. Here we are. Deanna, take it away.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. So, hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm going to be focusing on our Alltreat Farms compost facility portion of our business, where we receive the IC&I organics from the CIC pilot program. Next page, please. But first, just a quick glance at our agenda. I'm just going to go over with you sort of who we are, what we do in regards to our history, both at Walker and Alltreat Farms, then dive a little bit deeper into our process and what sets us apart. I'd also like to highlight the importance of diverting IC&I organics in our sector and the direct impact that this might have on our economy as well as our facility. And lastly, want to go over some never before done innovative things that we've proven at Alltreat Farms that's going to really forever change how we deal with specific waste, maybe even two moving forward. Next slide, please. So Walker Industries, we're a fifth generation family-owned company with more than 130 years in the business. Our base is in Niagara region, and we have facilities all across Canada, United States. Walker employs more than 1,200 people in the environmental waste management and recovery, renewable energy, paving and construction, aggregates, and emulsions chemistries. Specifically, we have 6 composting sites in Ontario. 2 out of the 6 compost sites can accept food waste. One is in Niagara. The other one is in Arthur. Alltreat Farms is located in Arthur. And both use gore cover technology to process the food waste. So as Canada's largest, fully integrated resource recovery business, we do provide solutions both to the public and the private sector customers. We process just over 750,000 tons of organics materials annually into sort of various high-end quality products, including fertilizers, mulch, compost, alternative low carbon fuels, which we then sell back to the marketplace. Next slide, please. So Walker did start as a modest single cut stone quarry back in 1887, and it's really evolved into this multi-divisional diversified enterprise with the goal to recover resources being the company's top priority. And it's really that generational thinking and looking at managing waste from a circular perspective long before circular economy model was a thing that really makes Walker a good community partner. And Walker is here for the long haul, and our goal is to build that sustainable future with our communities together. Next slide, please. So Ultra has started by the White family back in 1955 by composting and dehydrating manure. Prior to this, the White family were farmers, and as their composting business picked up, they slowly turned their property into a full compost operation. So in the 1990 is when they first started accepting municipal leafing yard waste, and by the 2000, they were composting food waste. In 2016, the company was bought by Walker Industries with similar family values and long-term vision and approach to how we do business. And it's a really neat sort of acquisition story, because a lot of the staff members from, who have started at Alltreat have remained on site under the Walker and have over 30 years of experience. So that acquisition went very smoothly. And we think it's attributed to kind of the strong family roots, values, visions that both companies had. And it's such a unique business and a neat story for us. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our process overview. We have 3 different processes that we utilize: our leafing yard process, our wedge process, and our gore cover process. Our leaf process, it's outdoor windrowing of leafing yard material. It is a challenging material to compost because it does take quite a long time to break down. Our wedge process, it's a unique process as well. It's the only one in Canada that uses sort of outdoor static pile to the scale that we do. And then, of course, the gore cover technology. This is where a lot of our food waste goes through or are digested as well. And we like this technology because it's efficient, it's low energy, and there's never any downtimes. So just to kind of guide you through what that process looks like, trucks come in through our facility, they go through the scale, they go into the receiving building, they unload at the door, then they drive off to pick up their next load. In the meantime, we're inside that receiving hall. There's a scrubber building to purify the air. The food waste is then blended with yard waste to create optimum CN carbon to nitrogen ratio. We then add moisture to the material. And once it's mixed inside that receiving building, we then fill one of the gore rows, we call it, where there's air that's blown through outside fans and through the air channels at the bottom of each of the rows. And so once that row is full, we then cover it with a gore cover, and we insert 2 probes at the top. One is a temperature probe, and the other one is an oxygen probe. And we're just constantly monitoring the oxygen and the temperature because we want to ensure that we're meeting pathogen kill per the regulation, which is a minimum of 55 degrees Celsius for 3 days, especially in the thermophilic phase, which is at the very beginning of the composting process. And majority of our piles, reach 65 to 75 degrees Celsius. So we have no issues with that. And so basically once it's in one of those rows for 4 weeks, a loader will then move it to another row and we go through that same process. It gets covered with the 2 probes, and that lasts for 2 weeks. Then we do that for a 3rd time. So altogether, it's in our gore pad for about 8 weeks, 2 months. And then once it's finished in the gore pad, we then take it, screen it with our wedge material, and cure it outside for a minimum of 21 days before we test it and pass it to our bagging line. Now, a little bit about the IC&I organics If Ontario implements, a food organic waste disposal ban, it could easily triple our current capacity in Ontario. And some of the data does go back a few years ago, but it's believed that there's about 400,000 tons of IC&I organics currently going to organic processing facilities out of the 1.6 million. So about 1.2 million organics is going to landfill. And so we have high hopes for the future, and in preparation for organics increase in the market, Alltreat has expanded. You can see sort of our expansion here in the picture, all those empty new rows that you see to the top and to the bottom here. These GOR rows have all come online end of last year. And so we have doubled our capacity to accept organic waste. We can now accept additional 44,000 metric tons of organic waste. So we went from 32 GOR rows to now 64 GOR row pads. We are on 100 acres of land in Arthur, and we will be tied for the largest GOR facility in North America, alongside with Cedar Grove in Washington, US. But this GOR expansion, what's neat about it is, we allow for growth of clean tech jobs in rural Ontario. The GOR expansion project will create over 21 million in capital investment into the Canadian economy, and it's resulted in 20 or more full-time green jobs in the composting facility, as well as few incremental management positions, promotions as a result of the expansion as well. And additionally, the project itself has created 60 full-time equivalent jobs too. Next slide, please. So to the left here, this is what the material looks like coming in, and to the right, what the compost looks like at the end of our process. You can see from the left, there is a little bit of contamination coming in. Sort of our biggest challenge is, of course, fruit stickers that are more annoying than anything, just because it can go through our screen size. It does stick to our equipment. Even grocery bags instead of compostable plastic bags, we pay for that kind of contamination. But I think our biggest challenge to date, and this is for the entire industry, is really glass. It just takes that one pickle jar to get into, that one load, and it could shatter into 1,000 pieces. And unfortunately, it could potentially contaminate our end product. But I wanted to highlight just what's involved in our process. We have a whole dedicated team, a quality control team that ensures that we're making the best quality product out there. There's 3 categories that you can make, AA, A, and B. AA being the highest quality, and Alltreat only makes AA. And in order to meet this category, we have to test for foreign matter, heavy metal testing, both on the incoming material as well as finished compost. We have to maintain 40% moisture during curing, pathogen kill, maturity, all that. But once we deem our compost passed for all these tests, we then can use it in our packaging plan as well. The material goes through another screener. It's blended into soil and different amendment products. And if you can go out to the next slide, Katie. And we supply about large retailers such as Walmart, Home Hardware, and the list goes on here on your screen. So we're forecasting to sell about 6.5 million bags this year. We currently sell 200,000 cubic yards of compost a year, and we hope to sell 300,000 cubic yards in the near future. Next slide, please. So Grow Better is a new brand that we've just released. It's a combination of soil and mulch products, which are made from 100% renewable recycled material and composted ingredients. What's awesome about this brand is that it really stands out from its competitors because it's made from not only 100% composted material, but it's also peat-free as well. And if you want to learn more about the brand, product benefits, all that, you can follow the link at the bottom there. Next slide, please. So I've listed a few benefits here, but really, this is not a complete list. There are so many benefits to composting. But what I'd like to highlight is that, what I'd like to start off with highlighting is the benefits of landfill diversion. At Walker, we've calculated how much waste is diverted in a bag of our one blended compost product. So for every 25-liter bag of blended compost sold, there's approximately 33 pounds of waste diverted from landfill. And if it was straight compost, it'd be approximately 66 pounds of waste diverted from the landfill. Now, soil is made of so many different components, but it's really the organic matter fraction that is so important because that's what provides structure, holds on to water, stores plant nutrients, stores carbon. It's a natural disease suppression thanks to all the microbial diversity. But really, without organic matter, we can't grow food, and that's key for us. And so we're very happy to be able to create products that goes back to our fields, goes back to our gardens. Next slide, please. And the future. So I really just want to finish off the presentation by touching on some of the exciting research and developments going on as far as the benefits of compost go. We have built a greenhouse on site. You can see a picture of that top right. So really we can continue to lead the industry in research and innovation. It will help ensure we're creating quality products of our finished compost, but also solving current marketplace problems. Our current project is looking at a greenhouse virus among tomato plants in the greenhouse industry. And we've been able to prove through our grower process that we can kill this virus due to the high heat in our process, so that the plants and the growing media that's infected can be reclaimed, recycled as a valuable resource instead of going to the landfill. And this could mean that about more than 100,000 metric tons of compostable waste that can be recovered safely is being recovered and reused each year. And as importantly, diverting this waste will take the pressure off the province's waste management infrastructure by recovering what would have otherwise been destined to landfill and adding it back to the circular economy. A couple other things I want to mention is we're also investing shy of 20 million into building a new packaging facility. So we're expanding on that front as well. And this will result in 6 full-time green job positions also. This expansion will allow us to gradually hit our goal of packaging 120,000 skids per year of various bagged products. So we're doubling on that end as well. And some other innovative projects that we've been focusing on lately is researching and developing and working closely with the Niagara Glass to successfully prove that recycled glass sand could replace mine sand and aggregates in grow bark stormwater bioretention media, creating a circular economy for the recycled glass outside of traditional reuse options. So Walker, through many of our businesses, including Alltree Farms, does aim to create a more sustainable, more resilient economy that not only efficient, but it's regenerative as well. Where waste is minimized, resources are conserved, and environmental degradation is reduced. And in order for Walker to continue doing these amazing, innovative projects, we do need continued supply of organic feedstocks. So recovering IC&I organics is really, we think, is the next step for our industry. If approximately 1.2 million tons of organics in Ontario is being sent to landfills, it hurts. It should be in our fields, our gardens instead. That's huge amount of nutrient loss going to our landfill. And so what do we recommend to capture more of the IC&I organics moving forward is implementing that food and organic waste policy statement and food and organic waste disposal ban. There's a need for consistent supply of feedstock, which is currently being compromised by the availability of cheap landfill capacity that doesn't take into account any externalities. So the province should consider establishing a date of implementation and clarify what organic waste ban means. The implementation of the disposal ban is complementary next step to the food and organic waste policy statement. And specifically, we would want the province to establish a date of implementation of a full disposal ban and enforcement plans. And that concludes my presentation for today. Thank you for the opportunity to present and speak to you.
Thanks, Deanna. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Doss. Those were some great words, and hopefully we've given our group a really comprehensive overview of the pilot. Shirley, it looks like we are.
I've got a few questions, so I'm just going to go over them. Some of them have been answered, and what Deanna partially answered this, so I don't know whether you want to add to this, Katie. Is what were the contamination levels observed during the actual pilot, and how were they monitored? Deanna spoke about how, all treat look at the contamination level, but do you have anything to add to that, Katie?
Well, sure. Deanna could answer this as well, but sure, I'll add my component. It was regularly below 5%, and those reports were provided to us initially weekly and then monthly as the pilot got underway, and we needed that weekly feedback at first to understand what additional training we might be required, and sort of feedback that back into the businesses. What I would say so that was really valuable support that the Walker team provided to us from Alltreat. What I would say is that the staff on the majority of cases are trained at home to do source separation of organics. So we actually provided really nominal training. We had posters, very large posters, clearly posted in multiple places at all of our businesses, on the bins, and we provided sort of an overall guidance and initial training to all of the managers of our IC&I participants. But beyond that, it was really up to some internal management, and from the get-go, the most common contaminants were sort of what Deanna was saying, lots of stickers on fruit, the occasional bag of produce, some things of that nature, the occasional carton of milk. But I don't know, Deanna, if you want to add anything more to that.
I do. I was going to say, you know what, we were positively surprised to see how little contamination was in the IC&I organics we were receiving. And keep in mind too, prior to this pilot starting, we were more in the municipal sector, and there are times, we can receive SSO that's up to 15-20% contamination rate. So in comparison, we were expecting maybe more contamination from the IC&I side, but what we've received through the pilot has been absolutely amazing and very shocking to all of us. So I mean, that educational piece is so important.
That's great. Another question here was for Peter. Did you test your estimated tote weight with a control to see the accuracy of that?
Yes. So initially what we did is we ordered some large commercial scales, and Katie and team went from site to site to baseline each individual tote based on different hour intervals. And while that was happening at the same time, we ensured the sensors were connected to match and really fine tune the data set / the conversion equation. So yes, that was the process we originally took.
Great. And then another question was regarding Second Harvest. Does the Second Harvest app work across the province of Ontario? Just wondering, is the restaurant industry aware of the app? We are located in Eastern Ontario, and just wondering if many of the restaurants and food producers are aware of the app.
Not sure I can speak to the broad awareness. I can say that the Second Harvest Food Rescue app is available across Ontario. And the way it works is that it's sort of the Second Harvest team is responsible for onboarding registered charities in a variety of locations across Ontario. And so what I'd encourage you to do is log in and look to see if there are charities that are registered to receive donations in your area. And if so, it's as simple as creating an account and posting a donation, and the donation goes out by radius. So it would start with any registered charities, let's say within a 5-kilometer radius. And if nobody responds within an hour or two, it extends the notice out, broader to 10 to 20-kilometer radius. But Second Harvest will work with businesses to onboard more charities if there aren't some in the region where your restaurant's located. So there's also other, food rescue organizations in many, many locations that you could potentially engage directly if that's your preference. The interesting thing about the Second Harvest Food Rescue app is it does allow you to choose. You can sort of send it out to whoever's available to collect. You can also choose a preferred partner if you already have a partner available. So from our perspective, it also captures the weight of donations and helps us convert that to CO2 emissions. So it provides a lot of valuable data to the business, because it's great to, let your customers know that you're part of the solution.
Great. There's a question here regarding the blue box. I'm not really sure whether we could answer that. Is like, what are the options because of the elimination of the blue box collection for IC&I sector? What are businesses supposed to do? I'm not really quite sure that we can answer that with our panel of people on this call, but we will look at that and get back to you separately there. There's a question here for Deanna. What is Walker doing in terms of making your packaging circular? What kind of options are there for packaging, and certainly in your future that you mentioned you're working on?
So on the packaging front, we are currently researching different packaging that can be compostable. Our challenge currently with that is with 6.5 million bags that we have to produce and all has to go out in spring. We do bag all of our products, a year in advance. And so our challenge is being able to come up with some sort of packaging that can withstand holding that product for a long duration. So we haven't quite, found a product out there yet, but we're continuously looking to see, if there's anything we can do at this time.
That's great. So I'm going to finish up now. As I said, any questions that are left that we haven't responded to, we will respond to you by email. And we thank you very much for your questions and everybody attending this webinar. As we said, it is the second one in our series. So we thank you all for being with us today, especially our expert panelists. And we will reach out again for the questions that we didn't get to. We will also make this this presentation available by PDF to everybody who registered. And also the recording will be available to everybody who registered. So we will get that out to you hopefully by the end of this week. And we just want to close with just reminding everybody a true circular economy is critical to live within our planetary boundaries. Collaboration and knowledge sharing is the best opportunity to recognize challenges and find the solutions we need to advance the circular economy. We're looking forward to announcing episode 3 of our knowledge series, which we're planning for the fall, once everybody comes back from summer vacations, lucky people that are going away. So watch out for the next announcement to join us very soon, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And we thank you once again for joining us and all our panelists. Take care. Bye-bye now.